Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 475 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron. I am so thrilled that you are here with me today as I am talking to Nicole Meier, and we had a fantastic conversation on slowing down the hurry mode. Very, very hard for me to do. Also, we talk about our superpowers and what yours might be. We talk about zooming out to look at character interiority. And also, we talked a little bit about having seen goals. So please stick around for that. What has been going on around here? It may sound like I'm still sick, but I am just having the worst allergies of my life. And I am on three different kinds of allergy medication, and I still can't breathe because it is spring with a vengeance, and that is a wonderful thing. Warm and sunny this morning, heavy rain and the promise of hail this afternoon. 2 days ago, I drove down to the beach in the morning to go for a swim because I've been doing that before work lately, and I had to scrape ice off my window. But the water was gorgeous and the sun came out. So it's that spring in the air, the flowers are blooming, and I'm sneezing, which is why I sound like this. Um, what else has been going on? But like I didn't tell you much about going to Wanganui to do some research 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to mention because I got sick last week and didn't talk much about it. But I'll just mention that I'm going back again tomorrow for the weekend. The book that I am writing has to do with Edith Collier, the artist, and it's Edith Collier weekend at the gallery, which just reopened 2 weeks ago after a 10-year closure. And I am going to be the person who goes to all the events. I think there's 3 or 4 events, like talks, there's a gallery tour, there are a couple of lectures. I'm going to be at all of them. And I don't know whether or not to be embarrassed or not yet. I don't know if there's going to be 40 people who are Edith Collier stands, and we're just going to be there going, Edith, Edith, Edith. Or if it's going to be me and 6 or 7 little old ladies who accidentally wandered through the gallery and decided to stay for the talk, and then I just keep coming back. Oh, I'll just tell you this and nobody else. I sent an email. I sent an email like 4 days ago. I sent an email to the people who wrote the book, the new Edith Collier book. They're all going to be there. On this email, I attached the director of the gallery and the people who work there who are involved in the Edith Collier weekend. And I was just saying, hello, I'm coming up. I live in Wellington. I'm writing a book about Edith, and it's not about Edith, but Edith is in it. And I'm really excited to be there. And my friends, no one has responded. The only I've heard you feeling embarrassment and nerves, and I know I'm being silly, and I'm seriously just hoping it went to spam, and that's why nobody responded. Are they just going to think I am the silly American? These are the things we think about when we are very excited about our books. But I love Edith. I love Charles, the other person I'm writing about, and I'm beginning to love the contemporary character whose name is Amelia, named after one of my friend's daughters. Um, I still don't know enough about her, but I'm going away for this weekend just by myself. Just 2 nights away, and I'm staying in the little town, 15 minutes outside of Wanganui, where Edith Collier bought a house when she was in her late 70s, where she could just like live it up. And I'm just going to go to that small town, which has like ten houses in it. And I'm going to walk around, try to figure out which house was hers. I can't find any documentation about where she lived. I'm just being my excited, enthusiastic self. And I'm going to try not to be too embarrassed. And I will try to wear some cute clothes. And that's all I can do. But I'm very excited because honestly, the 3 or 4 presentations won't take that long. And the rest of the time, I'm just going to be hanging out and daydreaming about this book. I am trying to get something of this makes me a little bit nervous, but a pretty dialed in synopsis because I don't want to write this book and then present it to my agent who then says, "Oh, there's no book here," because this is a book. I know that it'll probably be better as a traditionally published book. I have made the decision. This is exciting. I've made the decision to self-publish The Fix, which is my recovery memoir. I guess that's big news. I should have led with that. But the recovery memoir, I was trying to decide between having my agent take it out and self-publishing it, and I have decided to keep it with me. I am self-publishing it. I will do it early next year. I will do it a lot like Unstuck. I'll have a Kickstarter that will fund the audiobook portion recording because that takes so gosh darn long. I might hire a sound editor to do the editing for me this time because it did take months and months, which is why a Kickstarter is a great idea. So that will be coming out next year. And now that that is decided, booked my copy editor. That's all locked in. Um, I'm super excited about that. When that book is done. Ooh, yeah, I'm very excited. Why did I say that? Oh, because this book will be lit fic, and literary fiction is still something I think that, eh, you know, um, I think probably sells better traditionally because then you can get the distribution into bookstores. However, that said, there will be literary fiction that breaks out at some point that is self-published. Who's to say it won't be that one? You know what? I could pretty safely say it won't be that one. It's going to be queer and set in New Zealand. That's a niche. That is a niche. So my point in saying this is that I am working on the syllabus. The syllabus, that is not the word. Syllabi are fun to write. Synopses are not. They are hard to write, but I'm working on a synopsis that kind of I'm going to try to make sense in it. I'm pulling together these three different timelines and putting them into story structure, even though the things that happen very out of story structure. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this, and then I'm going to present it to my agent and then have a conversation with her to see if she even likes this idea. If my agent, I can just say this, if my agent came back to me and said, I hate this idea, I hate the idea about a historical queer joy book set in New Zealand, I'd still write it and then I would just self-publish it. And my agent wouldn't say that. But I would like her big, gorgeous brain working on the snarls in this book before I start writing it, which again is not the way I normally write. I am normally a pantser. But in this book, there will be so much to pants along the way, even if I have a pretty good outline of where I'm going. I don't think I'm going to lose the creative drive or vision for this. Time will tell. Oh, I am excited. I'm still so excited about this book. Thanks for listening to me waffle on about it. And let's see what else is going on. I went to the Hikoi. You may have seen on your social media feeds something that happened in our parliament last week. There are these treaty principles that were brought to Parliament in bill form that would have taken power out of Te Tiriti, which is the Treaty of Waitangi, which basically gives self-governance to the Maori people. This treaty bill that went forward, that the right-wing party, who is right now in power, brought forward. It's interesting in New Zealand. Politics move a lot faster here. You have two votes. You vote for your party and you vote for your local MP, but you don't vote on anything else. You basically give your power to your representatives to vote for you, to make changes. And because it's a small country, change can happen quickly and can take effect really quickly. And the bill that went forth basically is kind of like an all lives matter bullshit thing, which is like, well, everybody should have self-governance. Everybody, no matter if you're Maori or Pakeha, white, European, from any other nation, you should have self-governance. But what this thing actually does is it quits protecting the Maori from self-governance and allows, shock and surprise, the corporate ability to privatize and take things like lands over. So the bill as it is, I mean, no, sorry, the treaty as it is, not only protects Maori, but it actually protects all Kiwis from that corporate privatization that can happen. And of course, these people are playing the long game and they want to break that power and stop it. So they knew about the big march that was coming to Wellington to protest this. It started from both ends of New Zealand, from the very tippity top and the very bottomy bottom, and everybody walked or car caravaned toward Wellington. It took 9 days, and on the ninth day, everybody marched into Wellington for this incredibly huge, gorgeous march called a hikoi, which is a kind of protest march or or a walk in solidarity. And the damn uh, Parliament brought it forward almost a week early. And you may have seen in social media where one of our MPs, a beautiful woman, Hannah Rafti, ripped it in half and then did the haka in Parliament with her peers. Parliament got shut down. It is just one of the most gorgeous things you'll ever see. So if you haven't seen, you can Google haka Parliament. It will be the first thing that comes up. It was incredible. So they did that on Thursday, and then the march was Tuesday. We took the whole day, got down there, walked. We walked and walked. We walked for about 3.5 hours, and never even got onto Parliament grounds. We couldn't even get close to it. But just to be there was incredible. It was very quiet and peaceful. A lot of singing, not a lot of chanting and yelling like the other protest march that I've been on. I've always been in protest march. This was quiet. Um, there was, of course, being being the world, there were lots of racist comments about, well, this march with these kind of people is going to be nothing but violence and and rubbish left on the ground. There was no violence. There was literally no rubbish. There was an entire contingent of people that the Hikoi had that went out after we left anywhere. So when we left Parliament, these people swept in and left it cleaner than it had been when we arrived. Not a gum wrapper on the ground. It was just an incredibly beautiful moment to be a part of. And I believe that we are seeing that this particular amendment, that's not what they call it, but that's what an American would call it. This amendment is not going to go forward. Uh, However, the ground has been laid, and for giving corporations more power, which is actually not a thing that happens here in New Zealand as much as anywhere else. So anyway, that's my political speech for today. We went on the Hikoi, and we will continue supporting as Pakeha in New Zealand, standing with Tangata Whenua, the people of the land. We are Tangata Tiriti, the people of the treaty. The other thing about the treaty is it allows us to be here. It allows European descent people and other people to be here. The treaty says, yes, the Maori will allow you to be here. Without the treaty, we ain't even allowed. So let's keep the treaty. Thus endeth my TED Talk. Let's get into the interview with Nicole. We'll turn it back over to writing. But we live, people. We live in order to write about it. We use our words because we are people who affect change in the world with our words and with our actions. So I am proud of you for whatever words you are writing, for whatever actions you are taking, big or small, to make your world a safer, better, brighter, more inclusive place. And because you're a writer, you have a skill that most people don't have in doing that. So good on you. All right, here is the interview with Nicole. Nicole Meier is an author and book coach living in the Pacific Northwest. Her debut novel, The House of Bradbury, was chosen as a best book of 2016 by Refinery 29. Her second book, The Girl Made of Clay, was named a top book according to BookBub readers. The Second Chance Supper Club was named a Best New Book 2019 by Pop Sugar. Her fourth novel, City of Books, is out now. Nicole is the host of the Steps to Story podcast and a certified book coach and developmental editor working to help fiction writers bring their stories to life. Please enjoy this interview. I know that you will. And thank you so much for being here. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome you to the show. Will you please share your name and your pronouns with us?
Sure. My name is Nicole Meier and I go by she, her. Thanks for
Hello.
having me.
Of course, I'm so happy to talk to you. And I just have to ask selfishly, is that your room behind you, or is that a really good backdrop?
That's a room, but that's actually a Murphy bed, so it looks like a closet, but
It's a Murphy. I'm obsessed with Murphy beds. They're
yeah, me
so
too.
cool. And also, like with a Murphy bed, it's always going to look that clean and neat behind you because you can't like
Right,
put stuff in front of it. It's
right.
oh,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Okay, thanks for indulging me in that.
Sure.
Can you please tell us a little bit about your writing process? How do you get your, I know you help other people get their words done, but how do you get your words done? How do you help yourself do that?
Yeah, it's actually evolved over time, which I'm sure so many writers would give you that answer, right? I started out way back with my debut as a pantster, so writing by the seat of my pants with zero plan, zero idea what characters would show up on the page that day. And then, slowly things evolved, whether that be me realizing how my process should be working or a little bit of input from my publisher saying, hey, we need a lot up front. So then I started incorporating more plotting, more outlining. And now I think I would say my fourth book just came out in May. I'm back to
Congratulations.
a happy, thank you. I'm back to a happy medium of a little bit of pantsing, a little bit of plotting, and I found my way somewhere in the middle.
So what does your plotting then look like? Do you have a simple outline? Do you have a simple spreadsheet, or do you just have some post-its? Like, give us the rundown.
Okay, well, I love a good whiteboard. I am a whiteboard nerd. I just love having all the colored pens. And what I do is I try and plan things out or even just brainstorm, have mind maps in all different colored pens. Usually take a picture of it and then I'll erase it and start over because
Oh,
I'm
I like that.
I'm constantly using my whiteboard. But to answer your question in terms of, what do I actually plot out? What do I do in an outline? I'm a huge fan of the 7 point story arc. And so I like to know just those seven major plot points because it gives me a direction without me feeling like I have to outline my book within an inch of its life.
I'm just kind of starting a new book right now, and I'm thinking about the bare minimum of plot points that
Right.
I want for my particular book because I've already got too many, and I know that from past history. I'm trying to write a lot of book, and I don't need to write a lot of book. I can winnow it
Yeah.
down. So that's fabulous. And people, are curious about that. You can just Google those seven plot points. And
Yes.
everybody's saying kind of the same thing about story structure, but we all talk about it in different ways. Um,
Right.
I love that. So you've got your whiteboard, and then do you have it? Are you looking at it while you're working? Are you adjusting it while you're going?
I am totally adjusting as I'm going. I like to think of it as a container, right? That's going to hold parts of my story, but your container's allowed to evolve. And that's what I love is there's room for discovery. There's room for new things to come on. There's room for me to edit things out. But if I have that mini roadmap, in the form of the 7 point story arc, it really just gives me a direction to follow. So I absolutely am a fan of sticking things on the wall, putting things on the whiteboard because we all kind of lose our way. For me, it's usually around page 150.
Yeah, I'm
And
about page 100. Yeah, that's
yeah,
it's
so I need a visual. For me, I'm a visual learner. And so I really need a good visual to remind me, oh, this was my message. This was my plot point. This is where I want to go with the midpoint or resolution, whatever it is. And yeah, oh, yeah, now I can get back on track.
I love it. What is the most exciting thing that you've ever learned about your writing process?
Oh gosh, exciting thing I've learned about my process would probably be it's okay to make mistakes. I thought that I had to be pretty perfect right off the bat, which I mean, who doesn't? We all feel that way at certain times. But the exciting thing is that there's room for growth. And I think that even if it's the third or fourth draft of that revision, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have timelines that are messed up. It's okay to have characters that are inconsistent as long as you keep going back and refining and layering. And I think the reason that's exciting for me is because it just allowed for so much freedom, right?
Yeah.
When you're allowed to make mistakes, you feel free. You don't feel constrained and I'm going to do the wrong thing. So that felt like a breakthrough for me pretty early on.
That's a huge breakthrough, and it's hard because I think like I'll just speak for myself. I knew intellectually, and I still know intellectually that I'm allowed to make mistakes, but there's always this background noise of like, well, but what if you just did it right the
Yeah.
first time? Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be easier if you could? And we can't. That's the thing. I just AJ Harper sent out a newsletter recently, and she said that revision is not about destruction, it's about revelation.
Oh, I
And
love
that's
that.
right. It's
Yeah.
so good. That's where the real true learning about our books comes is as we are working and making mistakes. Period.
Yes.
So,
100%. That is a great quote.
isn't it
Yeah.
good? I'm
Yeah.
I'm totally internalizing that one.
Right.
What part of writing do you struggle with the most then?
For me, writing, I am a rusher. So I like to say these days I'm a reformed rusher. But that is something I struggle with because I have a sense of urgency. And I think part of that is wanting to get everything that's in my head onto the page before I lose it. And
Mhm.
that has really sort of bitten me in the past when I've rushed too fast. I've glossed over whether that be elements of story structure, or I've rushed to send it to my literary agent, or I've rushed to give it to my beta readers when a little voice inside of me was like, you could wait a couple weeks, you could let this simmer and sort of cook on its own and come back to it. So I'm guilty of that. And like you said earlier, we know things in our head, but for some reason we don't always follow through with that. So it's
Yeah.
something I'm actually always catching myself on.
That is a great thing to know about yourself and to catch yourself in. And it is also something I'm very, very, very guilty of. And one thing I found that helps me with this is that I actually test myself. Like I'll write an
Mm.
essay for like a Patreon essay, and I will say to myself, it's been a few days I've been working on it. I've looked at it 100 times. I can't fix another word. And then I'll say I could send it right now, or I could send it
Yeah.
tomorrow. I bet I won't have anything to change tomorrow. And then tomorrow rolls around, and I do. I have a ton to change that I could
Yeah.
not have seen the day before.
Yeah. I had an amazing editor. I used to write for lifestyle magazines, and
Mm.
she always said, never turn in work hot. And what that meant is, yes, we're so excited about what we've just completed, but you will always find mistakes the next day.
Never turn in work hot. And it's so hard to do because it just feels so good to let it fly away. That's awesome. Writing that down. What are you really good at?
What I'm good at, I think that I think every writer has a superpower. I truly do. And I think that mine is character development. I love sort of doing all that interiority, getting inside the character's head, revealing sort of the inner reaction on the page. For me, that's a strength. I would say opposite of that is plotting for me in terms of just these big dramatic twists and things. That's something that's actually hard for me. So I love leaning into the character-driven stories, but when it comes to sort of a fast-paced plot, that's actually challenging for me.
So, if we were talking to somebody who is struggling to put that interiority onto the page with their
Yeah.
characters, what might you advise them to play with?
I would start, zoom way out and think
Mm.
about the basics, which we know, but we forget. So, what does your character really want and why?
Mm.
And then what's the why behind that? What's the motivation? How will this affect their larger picture, their larger story? Why is it so important for them to get success or to make it in terms of that goal? And that's going to drive every single scene. That's going to drive every chapter. And a lot of times we get caught up, in the story and what's happening, and we want to add all these layers and twists. But if you forget why the character is motivated in the first place, it kind of unravels from there.
I am just nodding in bemusement because that's what I do with every single book. I just realized that, I've been writing for 50,000 words and I've forgotten to think of them as a person with an internal drive. I'm just having them react to things that are happening around them or something they might do because it's
Yeah,
a Tuesday and not because their heart is on the line. You know,
right,
it's,
right.
oh, so how often do you, I know this might be a hard question to answer, but how often do you try to remember that? How often do you go up and look at that?
Yeah, I think that if you think about the overall goal for your character, it's really good for me and other writers too to think about the goal for each scene. So what's the scene goal, right?
Mhm.
Why do they want what they want? Even if it's crossing the street to get a bagel, whatever it
Mhm.
is, there's a why behind that. And yeah, we can think of these amazing points in the plot, but like you said, you have to say, why are they even doing this? Why does it matter? And so for me, I actually do that with every single chapter to make sure that my chapter is following that narrative drive. Like, why are they even doing this in the first place?
Following the why, following the because, because of that,
Yeah,
this happens. Because of that, this happens. Yeah.
totally.
It's so easy to forget. It's been a long time since it's been actually a couple of years since I've done a first draft of a novel. So I'm,
Yeah.
I think I'm actually terrified to start the next one because I've just been doing nonfiction for a while. Like, oh God, how can I make it easier for myself? So suddenly my podcast has gotten very personal, as it always is. But like, I'm like, can I take
Yeah.
some notes about the things I've forgotten how to do? Fantastic. So what is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Hmm. The kindest thing that I've done for myself is follow the story that I want to tell, not what I think I'm supposed to be telling.
Mm, tell me more
I've
about that.
Yeah, so I have four books, and two of them are with a hybrid press, two are with a big traditional. And
Mhm.
it's very easy to get the voices in your head, whether that's for people who work for the publishing company or what have you, saying, this is what the market's demanding, or this is what people are really into right now. And it sort of very slowly bleeds into your creative process without you knowing it. And I think the kindest thing I've done for myself is say, this is the story I want to tell. I don't care if it's not trendy. I don't care if I'm not meeting that specific market need. It doesn't mean anything to me if I'm writing what I think I should as opposed to what I want to. So again, it's easier said than done, but I've learned that over the years to listen to my own intuition because that's what makes us happy as writers is following the story on our heart as opposed to following what we think will sell.
That is the most important thing. But
Yeah.
I truly believe that there are people I know who have managed to combine the
Yeah.
two, and I'm not one of those people. Yeah, I'm just not. I don't know how, and I don't know if I want to. And I love pursuing what I want to pursue. And it is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself, especially when those voices get into you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe that so many writers can marry those two things, but it's sort of the energy behind it, right? The readers can
yes.
tell, oh, this is great energy. The writer loved writing this, as opposed to, oh, wow, they were really forced to put themselves like a square peg in a round hole or whatever. You can
Yeah.
tell the energy behind the creative process.
And I don't think that I'm not sure if a non-writer would be able to verbalize that. They just feel
Right.
it. Like, oh, I didn't connect. Didn't finish. That was a do not finish book for me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, can you please tell us about a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Oh, I love that question. I think that as all of us would probably say this that are writers, we knew it so early on, but a lot of us pushed it down, pushed it down,
Mm.
pushed it down. So I knew this, probably, I'll say this, in high school, I was a terrible student. And the one class that I cared about was my creative writing class. And when I got a C on one of my most favorite short stories that I'd written, it wounded me. It meant so
Oh my
much to me.
God. Yeah.
And I think that that's the moment that I know, oh, I care about this deeply. I didn't care because of the teacher or the kids in my class or the content. I cared because it was a story that I created and I wanted it to, resonate with people. So I would say high school.
That's such
Really.
an interesting answer too. I do hear from writers who often have this ink in their veins moment as a kid, but I
Yeah.
don't hear so much about the kid who is damaged and wounded. And I think it is because most of the kids who are damaged and wounded then never go on to write. That is the
Yeah.
moment in which they think, "Oh, I love books and I'm not going to be a writer," and they recover. So, can I just ask you how you recovered, how you allowed yourself to move
Yeah.
forward from that? Because that's really also, I'm really mad at that person who gave you a C. They were wrong.
She was actually a fun teacher. She used to do cartwheels down the hallway, but that's a different story.
She gets a C for cartwheel. Yes.
Um, I think that one of the best things that happened in my life, and I don't know if I chose this by design or if it sort of happened to me, is I went to a teeny tiny college
Mm.
where we all sat at like a boardroom table for class. So you had to show up. And I majored in English with an emphasis in creative writing. And I had to turn in stories. I had to turn in work that would get attention. And I learned how to hone the craft. I learned that what is important for me. I wasn't like in this massive class where I was afraid to have my voice heard.
Mhm.
So I think that having that small, intimate attention was really the thing that let me say, okay, now I'm going to join the college newspaper. Now I'm going to start submitting things widely. Now I'm going to follow this career path. And I think if I would have been caught up in like a larger pool of kids, I would have been too afraid.
That was another really kind thing that you did for yourself that you, I'm sure, did not have any idea you were doing in order to be kind to yourself when you decided to go to that college. But what a beautiful way
Yeah.
to come through that and have your voice heard and have yourself learn that it did matter and that it does
Yeah.
matter. How cool. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. May I ask, what is the best book you've read recently and why did you love it?
Oh gosh. I love Barbara Kingsolver. She's one of my
Mm.
most favorite. So I would say her most recent, which is Demon Copperhead, was great. And I read so much. I mean, I read constantly. I also work as a book coach. I'm always reading manuscripts too. But I think the stories that I feel, I would say read above your grade level.
Hmm.
So like Barbara Kingsolver is someone who I am not at that level yet, but I just admire such a storyteller. So my favorite ones are the ones that are a little bit above my pay grade.
I love that idea of reading above the pay grade, above the grade level. That is such a smart way to go because you can tell when you're reading on your own writing
Yeah.
level. And I can tell because I start rearranging sentences in my head while I'm reading, like, oh,
Yeah.
if they'd done that, they could have done this. But when I don't do that, that's
Yeah.
great. Like I'm in
Yes.
the story. Yeah.
Yes.
Will you please tell us a little bit about a couple things now? First of all, will you tell us about the most recent book, City of Books, and then also what you do for writers out there on the onlines?
Sure. So, City of Books is my fourth novel, and it came out in May of 2024. And that was a pandemic book, truly, which so many writers have said. But I live in the Pacific Northwest, and we have a very famous bookstore in Portland called Powell's.
I love that
And
bookstore. Yes.
yeah, for anyone that hasn't been there, they take up a whole city block. I want to say it's 68,000 square feet.
And do they
Um,
still have the smaller one across the river too?
they do.
The
They have
yeah.
a few others now too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over the pandemic, Portland was hit especially hard, and Powell's closed, and the thought was they may not open at all again. And I, like so many of their fans, were devastated.
Hmm.
So I reimagined a book, about a fictionalized bookstore as what if the book sellers, the employees, actually moved in and saved the store? And so City of Books is an homage to indie bookstores everywhere because I love a good indie bookstore, but it really is loosely inspired by Powell's.
Oh, that is so cool. Oh my goodness. You should were you able to do like a reading or a signing at Pals? That's what we need to get you to do.
Yeah, I haven't done one yet. I've done some in Oregon, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know Powell's is the best. And when
That
I
is
see my books on the shelves there, it's kind of like my big moment.
absolutely dreamy. Okay, and tell us a little bit about how you help others.
Yes. So I am a certified book coach and developmental editor. So I work with fiction writers, typically in the upmarket book club fiction genre.
Mhm.
And we work together, whether it's in small groups or one-on-one, really to sort of, well, I say blend the story that's on their heart with story structure. So they have that really strong manuscript that they can go out and either self-publish or get an agent and just follow their publishing dreams.
And
So,
do you kind of work with them as they conceive of the book and as they write the book? How long does that usually take? What does
yeah.
that look like?
I've done all of it. So, some people like to work with me month by month and they turn in pages and I do developmental edits and we talk about strategy. And then some people come to me when they're stuck or towards the end and say, I need to fix this manuscript. And so we work together to really, I want to go follow what the writer wants to do. I never want to put words in their mouth or rewrite their story for them. And we work together on, okay, what's your story? What's your message? What are you trying to say? Who are you trying to reach? And then we structure the book, the manuscript, so it's the best possible form. And then we move on from there.
Fabulous. And if somebody was looking for you and what you do, where would they find you?
Yeah, so my website's probably the best place to find me, which is NicoleMeier.com, and Meier is with an I.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole. It has been such a treat to talk to you. May the
Thank
new
you.
book continue to fly from the shelves. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.